Yo, what's going on, guys? And today I wanted to talk about the Detroit Pistons news that my colleague Michael Scotto put out at hoopshack.com. Link will be in the description. And basically, it's about Malik Beasley and Dennis Schröder's free agency plans. We'll quote what he wrote exactly, but I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts down below. It seems like Malik Beasley will be the full mid-level exception, and Dennis Schröder, they'd hope to re-sign him to a bargain of a deal. If not, he could be the one that walks. I want to hear your thoughts down below, and like, comment, subscribe for more content like this. It'll help us out a ton. So, what are we hearing? As you guys know, Malik Beasley bet on himself this past season, signed a 1-year, $6 million deal that ended up being a great bargain for the Pistons. And it was a deal that for Malik Beasley, he was making $17 million a year at one point with the Lakers and Minnesota Timberwolves. So actually, it was a far cry from what he had made. Not a far cry, but it was definitely less than what he had made before. And he played his role to perfection, lit it up from deep, second in the NBA and made threes, nearly won Sixth Man of the Year. Now, he's going to get paid again. The Pistons want to keep him, and he wants to stay. It's a good fit. Beasley said Detroit felt like a real team, the kind you want to show up to the gym for. That speaks volume. But here's the catch. Detroit can't just toss him any amount of money because they only have non-bird rights on him. They can offer about $7.2 million without going into any of their cap space. But if they do dip into their cap space, or they could just use their mid-level exception, which is most likely, of $14.1 million to sign him to at least a 3-year, $42.3 million deal or a 4-year, $56.4 million deal. That also means they could probably have him in good faith negotiate with other teams and then come back and tell him what they're taking, and they could match what other teams offer. And then that would obviously, if they do offer more than the mid-level exception, non-taxpayer, of course. Otherwise, they could risk losing him in free agency to a team. I would keep Malik Beasley at all costs. Obviously, I think if he goes over 20 million, that's where I do think that price becomes a little bit of an eyebrow raiser. So, meanwhile, Dennis Schröder, the savvy vet who played for 3 teams this past season, helped lead the squad, is also in play to return. The Pistons can offer him a decent upgrade in salary using early bird rights. He fits JB Biggerstaff's system, and the front office with Trajan Langdon seem like they like his leadership. I think Detroit is going to push to keep him unless some team comes in and brings in a wheelbarrow of money. With Cade Cunningham potentially, and I think he should, make all NBA, it would boost his contract significantly, similar to what we saw with Evan Mobley. I believe it's called the Rose Rule. That would eat into the Pistons' projected cap space, making it more likely they'll operate as a over-the-cap team this summer. Bottom line, Detroit's got a few moves to make. They obviously want to keep their shooters. Beasley, Hardaway Jr. is another guy that they would like to keep if the price is right. From what Michael Scotto reported, it seems like he's going to be the one most likely out of the 3 to go. And if the one that is most likely to stay is Beasley, as they want to keep the shooting and the veteran presence around Cade Cunningham and the core. Trajan Langdon knows they'll have to navigate the salary cap smartly, as they'll continue to build this squad into a playoff roster while staying under the luxury tax shot clock. So with that being said, what do you guys think? We go over what my colleague Michael Schroeder said at Hoops Hype specifically. We can read his quote. He wrote, after taking a one-year deal with Detroit and betting on himself, Pistons guard Malik Beasley is set to cash in this summer during free agency after becoming a Sixth Man of the Year finalist, finishing with second most total three-pointers made, 319, and becoming a locker room leader. He heads into the offseason, and the Pistons and Beasley have mutual interest in agreeing to a new contract, league sources told Hoops Hype. Beasley's expected to be coveted by teams with the non-taxpayer mid-level exception this season after shooting 41.5% beyond the arc over the past 2 years, while playing with Milwaukee and Detroit in 79 games or more in the past 4 seasons. Heading into free agency, Detroit has the non-bird rights on Beasley. This means that the Pistons can only offer him a maximum starting salary of $7.2 million without using cap space or non-taxpayer mid-level exception worth $14.1 million. And Beasley, given his expected market, is most likely going to be having to take the mid-level exception or eat some of that cap space that the Pistons have. So we move over what he said for Dennis Schröder. During Detroit's first round series, members of the Pistons spoke incredibly well of veteran point guard Dennis Schröder's positive impact on the team as a leader and floor general. Heading into the offseason, Detroit is interested in re-signing Schroeder, league sources told Hoops Hype. The Pistons have early bird rights on him, and his style of fits JB Bickerstaff and Trajan Langdon's vision for Detroit well. We mentioned what Cade Cunningham is going to do to the cap space if he does become an all-NBA player this year, which would potentially eat some of the cap space, shrinking it, likely leading them to operate as a team over the cap. The Pistons can operate as a team over the cap while retaining Tim Hardaway Jr.'s salary cap hold. The Pistons have a bird right on Hardaway Jr., shot 37% almost from downtown in 77 games. Detroit could also need to use the non-taxpayer mid-level exception to re-sign Malik Beasley, as we mentioned earlier. So to me, when I see that, I think that's why, I think there's a lot of teams that are going to look at Tim Hardaway Jr. and be like, let's bring him over, especially a team like the Knicks. Detroit only has non-bird rights on Beasley, and he's going to have significant interest, so it makes sense for them to prioritize him. Let me hear your thoughts.